Please welcome the incredibly muscular and amazing Dr. Michelle Sands.
Renee, thank you so much for having me.
You should see her pipes. Holy. Okay, so this is kind of cool. We met because through Dan, right? And
hmm
you were in town at the Social Selling Summit. Was that the event? Okay.
Yes, exactly. We had lunch.
We went for lunch. But you went through a lot of interesting things professionally, personally in the last little bit. But you did what? You did three things in the last few weeks. What is it?
So I did three bodybuilding competitions in the last 3 weeks. Little Michelle at 117 pounds is now a competitive bodybuilder.
So, was this the first time you ever did a bodybuilding competition?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I've been athletic my entire life. In high school, I was on track. I got a track scholarship to college. And then I always did like marathons, and then marathons started to get boring, so I did ultra marathons. And then like, okay, I did that. Then I did triathlons and Ironman, then adventure races. And I was always like, and then I started doing like Spartan races. Then I had my son. And then I kind of like stopped doing the events for a while. And then just recently, I kind of met like this little fitness group at the gym, and they were doing a Spartan event. So I did that with them. And then they were also, three or four of them were doing a bodybuilding competition. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, oh, you have great genetics. You should totally do it. And I'm like, that's like where you get up on a stage and people compare you to other people, and then you turn around and stick your butt out, and then they lick your butt and they're like, okay, her butt's better than her butt.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, that's not for me. And so, but I was like working out with them, and I kind of enjoyed like the working out to sculpt the body, and how the coach, he was like, well, it's more like, think of it like an art, like you're building a sculpture. And then the competition is just to see the different sculptures and the different beauty of the human body. I'm like, well, that seems a little bit better. And so I ended up doing it, the first one. It was a very small show, and it's 100% natural. So you have to do a polygraph before you get on stage to prove that you didn't take any steroids or performance enhancing drugs. And then the winners have to do a urinalysis to prove that they're not on drugs. So that was the first show. It was very small. It was fun. You get your makeup done, you get your hair done, you're wearing a sparkly bikini, you walk on stage. It was kind of fun. That one I kind of was a little nervous for, so I didn't do that great. But then I did the next weekend. My coach was competing in a professional show that also had an amateur show attached to it. So he's like, you should do that one with me. So I'm like, okay. So that one was a much bigger show. And this show was not a drug tested show. It was the larger, like more like the NFL of bodybuilding. And the girls there were giant. Like their muscles were so big. And I'm still small, right? So I have no desire to be larger than I am. But I'm like, how am I going to compete against these girls? There's no way I'm going to compete. And my coach is like, it's not about the size. It's about like your symmetry and like your conditioning. So I ended up doing pretty good. I came in second in one category and first in another category.
Wow.
Not overall, but just in my age group. And then I'm like, okay, I did good. I'm happy. I don't need to do this anymore. And then we're working out at the gym the following Friday, and my coach was like, you look great today. You look better than you looked on stage. You know, there's a bodybuilding show about 45 minutes away tomorrow that I know the promoter of. You want me to call him and get you in? I'm like, I just like ate like, so after you do these shows, like you kind of do this like prep leading up to it where you cut your carbs. So that week I was eating like everything. And so I'm like, I am bloated. There's no way I can do this show. And he's like, no, your muscles look full. You should do it. So I'm like, all right, why not? So we drive over. I do the show the next day. I win the entire overall for the physique category, which is supposed to be the most muscular of all the women. But I was the smallest person on the show. But my muscles had like the right definition and structure. So now I'm like a competitive bodybuilder. I've got like trophies and my pictures up in the gym and like crazy stuff.
That is insane. And
Yeah, but you know what? I actually am so excited about it because I've gotten so many like social media messages and messages from women in my audience who are like, "Oh my God, like you're my age and I'm 51." And they're like, "My doctor told me that there's no way that I can build muscle after menopause." And I'm like, that is absolutely wrong. Not only could you build muscle, but you could be a competitive bodybuilder
you proved
after
them wrong.
menopause.
You
Yeah.
proved them wrong. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, congratulations. That is not only dedication and showing up to the gym, counting your macros, doing all that stuff,
Yeah. Well,
but
your
like,
husband actually got me a little bit started there because I joined his little fitness group and he
oh
had
yeah,
his trainer who
yeah,
was
yeah,
like the Incredible Hulk over there.
yeah.
And Dan made an
He's doing
amazing
well,
transformation. So I'm
but
like, okay. And then he has the whole thing. You guys know Dan. He likes like make everything kind of like impossible for everybody else. So he's like, if you're a 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure entrepreneur and you also have a 6-pack, that's like you're in the highest
oh
percentage of
yeah.
people. So now I'm looking at like what percentage of female CEOs
Mhm.
that make 8 figures also have less than 10% body fat. And I'm like trying to make my own like Danism. And it's so funny.
So wait, you have less than 10% body fat?
Yeah, on stage I had well when I did my last body fat analysis was like a week before my last competition. I was like 9.4% body fat.
Oh wow. Oh my gosh.
Which is but I am just for everyone to know, I am just like a lean normal
Yeah, yeah, no,
person.
me
So even
too. I'm
before I got into
17. I'm
bodybuilding,
17% just living my life. So I'm like,
yeah.
really,
So that's actually really low for a woman.
it is.
But
I'm
my
also
body, my
18 feet
genetics, I'm just a
tall. So,
lean person. I don't have that much like subcutaneous fat. Like you could actually see like my veins, and even my mom, who doesn't even work out, you can see her veins in her hands. It's just like our genetics. We don't have a lot of
well,
like
okay, well,
under the
so
fat
like
skin.
let's not talk about that genetics because I want to talk about first of all is this insatiable drive to do this because when we look at like our society, we think of women our age. So I'm 43 or early 50s. There's a lot of preconceived notions of what it's like to be a woman our age, that we're experiencing perimenopause and menopause and we're all dried up. And it's like the world has chewed us up and spit us out. Like, what are we actually good for? And I was listening to maybe a TikTok the other day that it was explaining why women go through menopause. And I'm like, oh, bring it on. Like, why? Well, because, well, first of all, if women kept procreating, the world would be overpopulated. But secondly, is a woman can't be distracted and constantly bearing children because she needs to become the wisdom for people that are younger than her, for the other women
Mm,
bearing kids. So she needs to be the one that has the time and the experience to carry that wisdom forward. And I thought, oh, that is so brilliant. I shared that with Dan. He
that
goes,
is brilliant. I
it
love
makes
that.
a lot of sense. And so now you're like, Kate, check, we got that. Then there's somebody like you that comes in and says, wait a second, this does happen to women. We go through perimenopause and these symptoms are horrendous and I'm experiencing them. However, this doesn't have to be the way it is for you.
Mhm.
And so you're like, ladies, let's lose this weight. Let's have great night sleeps. Let's have a great sex life. Let's have a good libido, but libido just beyond a sex life. It's like the motivation to actually want to achieve something in life.
Absolutely.
You have this incredible business. You're crushing it and you have your own products too. What was the impetus to starting all of this?
Well, much like many people who are in the health space, like they generally either had someone in their family that had a health struggle or they had their own struggle. And I grew up in like just the worst health. I always thought I had like bad luck and bad genes. And when I was 12 years old, I had the most horrible periods. Like I had to miss school for like 3 days every month. And then my mom took me to the doctor. They put me on the birth control pill, which I was sworn to secrecy. Italian mom from New York, 12-year-old daughter on the birth control pill. It was a scandal, let me tell you. It was like the biggest scandal ever. So
Great.
like, do not tell anybody. It was almost like I was having sex because I was on the birth control pill. That's how my mom felt. So I was already had this stigma about my body was a bad thing. I always had like digestive issues growing up. I was a little bit overweight. And so when I got to junior high, about age like 13, 14, I went out for the track team because I'm like, well, I got to run because I want the boys to look at me and I want to be a little bit slimmer. So I go out for the track team, no running shoes, no nothing, could hardly run. But my track coach, she saw what I was trying to do and she like let me on the track team. She's like, Michelle, your body can do anything you want it to do. All you need to do is feed it, train it, and believe in it. And that was like, those words stuck with me for like my entire life. And I still tell some of my clients that this day. But she, like that track coach, Coach Shay, she had a garden and she would always bring like vegetables from her garden in and like share them with me because she saw what I was eating for lunch. My mom would pack me like 2 cans of soda wrapped in tinfoil, a Hostess snack cake, a bag of chips, and like some like bologna sandwich. And so she's like, Michelle, you can't eat that food if you want your body to run hard, if you want to do well at school, if you want your brain to work. And so I would trade my lunches out to all the other kids. I trade my Doritos or my chips for carrot sticks. And I trade my Hostess snack cake for an apple or an orange. Nobody wanted the bologna sandwich, so I would usually give that to the janitor. But I would try to like my own way of like getting my healthy food, even at that young age. And I ended up doing really good at track, ended up getting a track scholarship to college. I was the first person ever in my family on either side to go to anything in high school. But in track, in high school or in college track, it was way different than high school track. So I wasn't like the best one anymore. I was like, okay. And it wasn't just like recreational like it was in high school. Like in college on scholarship, I had to live in a specific dorm. I had to go to practice in the morning before classes. And I had to go to practice again. I got 3 o'clock after my classes were done. And it was like serious stuff, but I still had all the digestive problems. I still had the joint pain. I still had the period problems. I still had all the problems that I had growing up. They didn't go away. And so I was taking like 6 to 12 ibuprofen every morning just so that I can like run without the joint pain. I was taking like stuff to make me not go to the bathroom, stuff to make me go to the bathroom, stuff to help with my antacid. It was like ridiculous. I had like this like Costco size like pharmacy in my dorm room. And then I wouldn't be able to eat anything until after the second practice because if I ate, I would actually poop my pants when I ran. So It was this like nightmare of a situation. On the outside looking in, everything's perfect. On scholarship, doing well at track, doing well at school. On the inside, I was like breaking down. And so sophomore year, regular track practice, I pass out on the track, just pass out while I'm running. They take me to the college like medical center and they run some tests and they give me some fluids and they're like, oh, you're just dehydrated. You can just go home, make sure you eat and drink. And I just break down. I'm like, no, it's not just dehydration. I can't function. I'm taking all this ibuprofen. I'm taking this. I'm taking that. I can't. My periods are terrible. I just can't do it. And so then they start like, okay, like I'm just like crying and they're just looking at me because they're like, we are just here to give you fluids. Like we are not here to fix your whole life. And so they do like urge me to go to see another doctor. So I go the next week to the doctor and they run all these blood tests. And then they call me back in and they're like, okay, well, there's nothing really wrong with you except you have the hormones of like a 55-year-old woman, which means like you don't really have any estrogen or progesterone. Like we're pretty sure you have ovarian failure. So having kids won't be in the cards for you.
How old were you?
I was 20.
Oh my God, you were a baby.
Yeah. So I wasn't even really old enough to like be a legal adult. And I was being told that I was never going to be able to have kids. Like I felt like they were telling me like, you are not a full-fledged woman. And so I just felt like this is that time when all my friends was trying not to get pregnant. Like that was like the thing you're trying to do. Like, I don't want to get pregnant, but I'm being told you cannot get pregnant even if you wanted to. And so that really crushed me. Like I just felt like what is wrong with me? Like I was doing all the things. I was eating good. I was running. I was doing everything. I was getting good grades. I was being a good girl. Like I was doing everything. Why can I not do what every other woman can do? And so I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody. And I kind of just started like going downhill. I stopped running track. I started hanging out with like the bad crowd. I started sleeping around with different guys because I couldn't get pregnant. So who cares? And I went through this little spiral, going to raves, drinking, all the things. And that didn't last very long. It lasted like probably like 4 months, maybe 5 months, but I'm a good girl at heart. So I can keep up. I had to go back to being normal, but I just felt so horrible about
Yeah.
just like my whole future. I was going to have the picket fence and the dog and the
Mm.
2 kids and the husband, and that was done now. That wasn't going to be in the cards for me, as the doctor said. And the fact that he said it's not in the cards for you, like that was the terminology. It was kind of shitty. So, anyways, so I kind of gave up on the idea of being a mom, and so I kind of got into my work and things like that. And then I just decided like one day I wanted to like be able to just like, eat normal, because I was still had like the problem with my digestion, and now my hair was starting to fall out too. So I'm like, I have to do something. So I started going to all these different doctors. I went to like Reiki practitioners and chiropractors and endocrinologists and Eastern medicine doctors, and anyone who said they can like help me in some way, I would go see them. But that was just confusing as heck, because they would all tell me different things. I would take one step forward and one step back. But then I went to a nutritionist, just this young girl. I think she was just out of college herself. And she told me, like, why don't you just remove gluten? I'm like, and this is in the 90s. This is before like everything was gluten free and everybody talked about gluten. I didn't even really know what gluten was. But I grew up in an Italian family in New York, and we ate like pizza, pasta, pastries,
Yeah.
Italian bread,
But
bagels. Like,
Italian gluten's different, though. Let's be honest.
but it was like 8 types of gluten at every meal. And so I'm like, okay, how do you remove gluten? And so I did that for a little bit, and I felt a little bit better. I'm like, holy shit. The doctors were all wrong. They all said there was nothing I could do. And here's this like young girl just out of school, and she figured out what I could do to actually start feeling a little bit different. So then I removed dairy from my diet. I'm like, well, oh my God, I feel better still. So the joint pain went away. And so now I'm like, okay, these doctors that all told me there's nothing I can do is wrong. And so now I'm like, I have to find out more. And so I decided I was going to go back to school to become a doctor myself to figure out what the heck is going on. So I started going down the path of like conventional medical school, but I wasn't learning about the body. I was learning about drugs and things like that. So I found out in my travels for going to different doctors, there was something called natural medicine. And I didn't really never heard of that before, but these were doctors, actual doctors, but they actually like looked at the body from like a root cause perspective, and they looked at all the systems of the body and not the symptoms that you were having, but like how things work together. So I'm like, that's what I'm interested in doing. So I went back to school to become a naturopathic doctor. And in the process, I had access to all these tools, like all these labs and everything I could possibly think of. So I became like a little guinea pig. I tested everything.
Yeah.
And so I figured out that I had heavy metal toxicity. I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition that affects your thyroid, which is why I was always kind of having trouble gaining weight or losing weight, and my hair was falling out. I had intestinal parasites and bacterial overgrowth. And then I also had just chemical sensitivities. So I was like, okay, now I know that there's actually things that I can work on. So I started, it took me like going through school. It took me about maybe 7 years after I got out of school to like work through all the things. And in the process, I met my now husband, and we started dating and going on a couple dates. And I was just telling him, hey, and this is what I told every guy I dated. You're not going to want to get serious with me because I can't have kids. So you'll never be a dad if we got together. So I was going to tell you that now, so you don't have to waste your time. And so Jeff's like, don't worry about it. Who cares? It's all right. We're just having fun. So we go to Mexico on a vacation, and I, of course, get sick from the water. So I'm like throwing up and I'm feeling sick. And Jeff looks at me. He's like, I think you're pregnant. And I'm like, you asshole. Why would you say that? Because I can't get pregnant, and that's such a sore subject for me. That's so mean of you. Like, you suck. And he just was so convinced. And he's like, let's just go get a pregnancy test. So we do. We get one of the drugstore pregnancy tests. It says I'm pregnant. So I'm like, that's wrong. So we go to the clinic. And in Mexico, it's kind of funny. They don't have to go to the clinic and fill out all the paperwork like we do here. We went to the clinic. They're like, here's a Post-it note. Write your name and your phone number. and then we'll take you back and draw your blood. So that's what they did. And like 2 hours later, they called the number and like, you're pregnant. I'm like, holy shit, I'm actually pregnant. So we did it again, and I was actually pregnant. So we had like our first little ultrasounds and everything in Mexico, came back here. And I still couldn't believe I was pregnant, but there was a baby growing inside me. It was confirmed. I ended up having my son at age 41, and he is a perfectly healthy little boy. And now he's 10 years old. And so that was kind of like the long story short. Why I started Glow Natural Wellness is because I feel like your diagnosis is not your destiny, and that there's so many people out there, whether it's with hormone issues, whether it's with cancer, whether it's with diabetes, that are being told there's nothing they can do and all they can do is take this medication. But there's so much there they can do. And I'm not saying everyone's going to reverse their disease or reverse their fertility, but there's so much around the edges that you can clean up and have a so much better life. And then why I'm so passionate about hormones and women's hormone health is because I got to see firsthand how poorly prepared our conventional medical system is to deal with women's health issues outside traditional pregnancy care. Like once you are not someone who's going to be bearing children, you're just kind of like pushed to the side. Even when I would go to my visits, there'd be a girl who's pregnant next to me and she'd be like, oh, come on in. And they would like give her like this special treatment. And then there'd be me who couldn't have kids and they were just like, just wait on the side. And I just felt like the women kind of get tossed to the side once they're no longer bearing children. And I see that now that I'm in menopause, I work with women in perimenopause and menopause. And it's just like this afterthought. And even in medical school, even in naturopathic medical school, where we learn a lot more about hormones, you don't learn a ton about perimenopause and menopause. You have to do that afterwards as continuing education. But in conventional medical school, I think they have like an hour about like menopause itself, nothing about perimenopause. It's almost like that doesn't exist.
I mean, I grew up in a household, my mother is Catholic, and anything to do with like this, your cycle or perimenopause and menopause, we didn't talk about it. It was
like our age group, it's like you just don't talk about those things. But the younger generation, like they're already talking about it all the time, which is great. I feel like this generation coming up now, the people who are like in their 20s and 30s, like talk about everything.
It's women like our age that are finally talking about it, writing the book, starting the clinics, having the podcasts. The top 2 health episodes of 2024 on podcasts was about menopause.
That's awesome.
We're finally shedding a light on the fact that almost every woman is going to experience one of these symptoms and are going to go through it.
Yeah.
Like everybody goes
that's
through
the
it.
Funny thing is like every single woman that lives long enough to reach perimenopause and menopause will go through it. But doctors seem so shocked and surprised and perplexed by a 40-something-year-old woman that's having the symptoms. They're like, oh, maybe you just need to eat less and exercise more. Maybe you're too stressed. It's like, no, it's perimenopause. Like every woman goes through it.
With my healthy friends today, we're finally talking about hormone replacement therapy, of which I started. And we would never share the fact that, oh, maybe we're on testosterone or estrogen or progesterone or DHEA, whatever it is, because then people think, oh, are you going to go and grow muscles? It's like, no, it's not. It's not the way it works. So I hesitated actually considering these as options for my symptoms until some of my best friends that are naturopathic doctors, that are hormone specialists, were on it. And I'm like, wait a second. You make a living of helping women with their hormones and you're taking hormone replacement therapy. My mind went like poof, it exploded.
It's funny you say that because as a naturopathic physician, I wanted to do everything natural with food, with herbs, with lifestyle. And so for a long time, I was like, I'm not going to take hormones. I'm going to do it naturally, right? But taking hormones is natural if you're taking bioidentical natural hormones. It's natural for women to have hormones. Now, what's not natural is for women to live this long as we're living. Like the life expectancy, like back in like when women were created was like 25 or 30. And so women didn't go through menopause. Now we're living average age like 80. So you're going to live half your life in perimenopause and menopause. So you need the hormones to function properly. Every cell in our body, every system in our body requires estrogen mainly, and also somewhat testosterone and progesterone to function properly. And without that, we dry up. We have joints that are not working properly. We have bones that are fragile. Our muscles aren't good. Our brains don't work properly. Our vaginas are dry. Like everything goes downhill
Yeah.
if we don't have the hormones. So it is natural for our female body to have hormones to function.
Yeah. So for the sake of this conversation, I love how, so first of all, you are coming to speak at the Pink Square Project on June 12th as a title sponsor, which is the most beautiful fit. And we're not going to talk too much about your talk, but it's really fascinating to me when you mentioned how libido, as we know it, my friends, is all about sex drive. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
wait, it's way more than that. Libido is
Yeah.
about motivation. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So like libido is drive overall. So we think of it a lot of times as like sex drive, like what lights us up. We get warm and fuzzy, our juices start flowing. And that applies to other things in life. That applies to like if you love your job, that applies to if you're going to write a book, if you're going to go do something you love, if you're going to do charity work. It's that drive to get out of bed where you're just like, yes, this is what I want to do. And it's your libido that drives you. You'll find that people with the strongest libidos are also people that get shit done. Mm-hmm. And it just happens to be that case. And if your libido's down and low, you're kind of like blah. You're like, meh, nothing's really that exciting. Nothing really turns you on. Nothing really revs you up. And it is very connected. In our sexual energy is energy. And as females, we have a certain sexual energy that we put out in the world, our divine feminine energy that makes us who we are and helps us to communicate with each other, helps us to communicate with men, helps us to get things done, and helps us to have that fulfilled life. And that connection, whether it be a sexual connection or a connection just as girlfriends or a connection with a business partner, that's all libido. That's all drive. That's all our kind of like our juices that flow. And there's techniques and tools that you can use to get those juices flowing, to find out even what is it that lights you up. Some women don't know. I will ask this question to women who come into my clinic or work with me online who like don't have that drive. And I'm like, well, what is it that lights you up? And sometimes they don't know. They don't have anything to tell me. And so a lot of times I'll take them back. Well, when you're a little kid, what did you like to do? Like, what would you like to do then? If you go into a bookstore and there's a wall of magazines, which one might you pick up first? And like things like that will help you get some clues. I do have like tons of little like techniques and tools to find out what lights you up. And then once you figure out what lights you up, then you have to engage in that thing a little bit to like kind of get yourself in that mood. It's kind of like foreplay.
Yeah. I like to organize pantries. That lights me up. No, but so that is fascinating because I think about like sex drive is libido is drive. And then so when you're looking at a woman, when is her libido naturally the highest, like age-wise?
That does vary a little bit depending on like culture. But generally women's libido is going to be the highest like in their 30s.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah, because for men it's younger. It's like 18 to like 24. But a lot of times women are they're a little bit shy or a little bit insecure at that point. And it's only when they kind of get late 20s, early 30s that they become more comfortable with their own body and they're able to actually have that libido kind of spark. It can be different for different cultures and different like demographics, of course. And it depends on like your upbringing and things like that as well. Because a lot of it is mental and psychological in addition to like physical and biological.
Yeah, because I feel like our society is like, once you turn 40, you're like, you're old, You're not pretty
Oh,
anymore. You know, you're losing your hair, your joints are hurting, you're gaining this weight you can't lose anymore. And in my
30?
mind, I
Oh
think
my
women,
God. Please
I
no.
know, but that's the thing. And then it's like now all of a sudden you see the media or you see all these like influencers that they're in their 20s or early 30s and they're almost like setting the standard for beauty. And there's one
Yeah.
thing you can't do when you age is go back in time. You can't ever look like a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's so
They're trying. They
degrading.
try. I think they try a
They
lot.
do, they try, but it's like I look in the mirror, I'm like, this is the youngest I'm ever gonna look right now. This is the youngest I'm ever gonna be. And even like
That is
with
true.
my husband, I turned to him and was like, you do realize that we're growing old together. And in our society, you getting older is sexy. It's
Yes.
significant. It's distinguished. But as me
Mhm.
getting older, it's like a deflated balloon. I go,
I know.
so
Why is that double standard? It's not fair. It's
no.
not
And like,
fair.
not only am I going through all of this bullshit stuff through perimenopause, I have to deal with these physical symptoms. There's like these
Yeah.
physical symptoms on the outside now too.
But you know what, though? I mean, I will say personally, with through my bodybuilding stuff, my body is better now at 51 than it was at 40.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
feel
I
like I
mean, I
look
hope so. You were
younger.
on stage. You won some awards. So,
Yeah, I got a trophy, but I think that that's if we don't do anything, that could be the case. But I think there's a lot we can do to combat that and to actually stay youthful and stay young if that's important to you. So whatever is important to you, you can actually change.
I
And
think
I didn't do any performance enhancing drugs. I'm not even on testosterone. I do estrogen and progesterone because that's what's low for me, but I actually don't have low testosterone yet. So I don't take any because everyone, when I posted that on Instagram, they're like, how much testosterone are you
yeah,
taking?
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you're not taking testosterone.
Yeah. I am, and I just started, and it's like I have the lowest
And if
dose.
your testosterone is low, you definitely should
Oh
take
my
it. But I
god,
also think there's something
I
going
was
on right
zero.
now where testosterone is like it's like the thing of the hour. It's like the catchphrase right now. So I see a lot of women be put on like high doses of testosterone that don't need that high dose yet. And now they're
No,
losing
so
their
my
hair and they're
my
getting
only
belly fat.
symptom, my only symptom, one day, and it was like day 4 or 5, whatever, of taking testosterone, was I got like angry rage feeling. I was like,
Oh,
it was like, whoo, it was threw me off because I got so mad at the kids. I went to the studio and I spoke with Dan. I was like, Dan, I'm feeling off. I don't know what's wrong. Like, I'm just like, I feel weird. And I told him about the morning with the kids. And so then I called my doctor up. He's like, yeah, why don't you just take half a pump instead of a full? And you have to understand,
yeah,
I'm on like the lowest dose already. And then
right.
we determined half a pump every other day was a great way for me to
Oh,
gradually.
perfect.
So
Yeah.
we
And
figured it
it's
out.
different for everybody. Everyone
It is.
absorbs their hormones different. So you might have another woman your same height and weight
Yeah.
and looks exactly the same, and she might need the full pump. So
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
interesting.
it's you just got to kind of fine tune the dials and then we're going to start with other stuff. But, going back to this youthful thing is I actually think it should be in everybody's best interest to maintain their youth, not in terms of their physical appearance, but the joie de vivre, the like
Yeah.
the libido. And like what happens is we start to get exhausted. Women have these like physical features that start to get older. We start to get brain fog. All these things happen where you actually physically don't feel good. And when that happens, it's harder to enjoy life because you're not going to go
Oh,
cannonball
absolutely.
into a pool with your 10-year-old boys when you have this low grade constant headache.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so
I mean, everything becomes less enjoyable when you're in pain or
totally.
uncomfortable or fatigued. And definitely if you're super tired, like the last thing you want to do is have sex, like for
Yeah.
most people,
It's not even an
unless you're a
option.
guy. So the difference between men and women is funny. Like men can like get fired from their job, get in a car accident on the way home. They can get out of their car, they can get into a fight, and they can come home, see their wife, and want to have sex.
Yeah.
And then women need like everything to be like, they need the music playing, the temperature has to be right. You better rub me on the arm, don't like breathe the wrong way. And then we might be in the mood. And so it's different. Like we are very different beings.
Yeah.
And like, it's important to understand that. Like, the husband might be like, "Hey, you want to have sex?" And it's like that's not how you ask me for. That's not how you get me to have
Yeah,
sex.
no,
You
it's
just
not
like
like
rub my
not an
shoulders.
exchange like that, buddy. Yeah, I get it. So like going back to this motivation and drive, I said this the other day where most women, especially when they get to our age, don't know how good they can feel until they start feeling good. Because if you're
Yes.
just used to living with something that's just a chronic issue, then you almost don't notice it anymore. How sad
Oh,
is that?
absolutely. I was just talking about this yesterday because like I'm like in pretty good like in tune with my body, and like I notice if like any little thing, like if I eat something that like at a restaurant and they put like a seed oil in it and they didn't tell me, I'm like, oh, I feel so inflamed and uncomfortable. And then like my friend did the same thing, and then he had back pain, and I'm like, there's people who do this all the time and they don't even notice that the back pain is there, and they just don't even notice that they're uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable so often
Yeah.
that it becomes a new norm. And for us, it's like I'm so used to everything feeling good that like one little thing's off and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? I need to
Yeah.
fix
Well, now you can fix it earlier on because you're nipping it in the bud.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
for me,
yeah,
it
it's
was
so
like,
true. Like once you start like making those changes, you start to feel good, and you're like, "Oh my God!" Like I have this energy, and now I'm waking up without the alarm, and like now, like things like it's almost like the black and white movie turns to color, and it's a whole new world.
so for the people that you work with, especially women that come in around our age, midlife, maybe a little bit past midlife. Like, what is midlife anymore? And they're feeling all these symptoms. When you get things dialed in, how long does it typically take for them to start seeing the light?
It's different for everyone. Some women, like within the first week, especially women who have trouble sleeping, when they get on the hormones, they start sleeping. Like that is a huge difference. Some women have like hot flashes, like multiple hot flashes per hour, and
Me
their
at
hormones can
night,
help them
that's what
do
I'm
that, right?
experiencing. It wakes
Yeah,
me
so
up every
sometimes like
time.
it's immediate, and then sometimes it's like okay, the weight gain, the chronic pain, things like that. Sometimes that can take a little longer because the hormones have to like catch up. But what I do notice is a lot of times women will be in that kind of like rut where everything hurts and they don't have energy and they're unmotivated. And so you tell them, well, you got to eat better and you got to exercise and you got to meditate. And they don't have the wherewithal for that because like their hormones are all about like don't give me one more thing to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes we can get the hormones kind of set up so it's easy, just take some hormones, and now they start to feel a little bit better. So now they can maybe go for a walk, and now they feel a little bit more better, and then now maybe they're clean up their diet a little bit, and now they feel a little more better. Now they're adding in some stress reduction, and then it's kind of snowballs
Yeah.
together.
Like
But it's hard to
sustainable
like
that
when
way.
you're all like down and out, and you just don't have the energy, you don't have the motivation, everything hurts, you feel like crap to like tell you to go do one more thing. Like
Right.
that's not cool because a lot of times it's the hormones are low and they need some lifestyle help. But when you get the hormones give you the wherewithal to do the other things. You can't just take hormones and expect it to like fix everything. There's a lifestyle
What?
component has to come into play
I want
too.
a
Like
refund.
I would not look like this and have the muscles if I was just taking hormones and never setting foot in the gym.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know what? It all comes down, and most of us, we all know it's about hydration, nutrition, exercise, sleep. And yet we will still compromise one, if not all of those things because of a lifestyle that we're used to. And it's
Mm.
about like
Yeah.
a city that we live in, a culture that we live in, a group of people that we're friends with that go out and have beer and pizza every other
Well,
night.
you have to be a little bit weird. You have to be a little bit weird to be healthy these days because
Yeah.
our culture is so set up to I can just sit at this desk here and I can go to school, I can order groceries, I can order dinner. I can pay my bills. I can do everything from this freaking chair and I never have to leave and I can have a fully functioning life. I can even date. I can do video dates. I can do everything you could possibly do. I could have phone sex. Whatever it is could be from this chair, never have to leave.
Yeah.
And so you almost have to be like, oh, you guys are all getting together and going to go eat pizza. I'm going to bring my own food this time.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you guys are all sitting around at a bar. I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going on a hike. Like that, you have to be the weird one in order to be healthy in this society,
Well, yeah. So when
unfortunately.
we packed our bags to come here to Austin, we used to do I did a carry-on. Oh, sorry, I did check bag. My sons would share a checked bag. But every time
Mhm.
we traveled, we always had to like buy an extra bag to go back. So this time I was like, everyone's getting a checked bag. Half of my
Yeah.
suitcase was supplements or something
Yeah.
I do to help maintain my lifestyle. And I'm like, this is weird to a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But you do it because you feel good, right? It makes you feel good.
That's it. I would rather feel
Yeah.
good than have 18 matching clothes or outfits for the trip.
Yeah. 16 pairs of shoes.
And that's it. I think I have like 3 pairs of shoes that I brought, but I feel good because my supplements are here. And I'll even know if I'm like a little bit off track for a couple days, like get back on track. But I
Yeah.
love that mindset about being a little weird. I was actually just talking to my brother-in-law today. Him and his wife have been sober for a year, and it's like a big celebration for
Oh,
them.
wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's like, how are you with your sober journey? I was like, yeah, I still enjoy a glass of wine. But my relationship to alcohol is different than theirs. Um,
Absolutely.
but we're talking about this too. And I said, you probably would have had to essentially abandon certain friendships because they
Yeah.
would have been promoting that. He said, absolutely. They do bring their own food to friends' barbecues. They do
Yeah.
bring their non-alcoholic beers if people are going out in a boat. Like you do have to be
Yeah.
the weird one. But what happens by default is you end up being the one that inspires other people to make that change too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some people will still call you, some people who are still kind of like upset with themselves or like not
Mhm.
comfortable with their own, they'll be the ones who like, oh, why are you doing that? Can't you just have a bite? Because they're like looking at you saying, I wish I could do that. And then the ones who are like, wow, what are you doing? Like, what is that you're eating? You're inspiring them. I totally agree with that.
The triggers, like your triggers in life. So those people that are like, but you're here for beer and hamburgers and chips. Why aren't you eating that stuff? Their triggers are essentially envy and jealousy. And whenever we
Mm,
experience that trigger of anger or jealousy or whatever it is actually an area in our life that you have to work on. That's where you
yeah.
have to do the work because if you're not triggered by it, then you're fine. But if you're triggered by the fact that you're hosting a barbecue and you invite these people over and they bring their own food, you might be insulted by that, but they're there, right?
Yeah,
Isn't the point of them
exactly.
being there regardless of what you're serving?
Yes, it's for the people, not for the food.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I say barbecue as an example because I'm in Austin, Texas. So it's all barbecue,
Yeah, it's true.
and it's good, but it's a little bit much. Um, I love the hope that you instill into your community. How you like breathe that breath of fresh air, knowing that yeah, we're getting older, but we don't have to be aging, right?
Yeah.
Aging in the sense of like I'm going to be huddled over with a cane and I'm going to be watching my daytime television shows in a couple years. No, like I feel almost as strong as I did in my early 20s right now.
I know. I used to think 50 was old. I remember thinking 50 was old, and now I'm like, 50 is not old.
Yeah,
Now 90 is old.
yeah.
And then I'll get to
It's all
90, I'm like, 90
relative.
is not old.
It's all relative. Like I know we're not spring chickens anymore. I know that.
You know
But
what, though? It's really interesting. I was just reading this little like magazine thing, and they were saying how, like, remember the Golden Girls, that TV show?
yes,
They were all like in their 50s and 60s.
you know.
And like now it's like 50s and 60s doesn't look like that anymore. Isn't that wild?
But also like we're breaking the mold of what it means to be a 50-year-old woman.
Mm,
Like I
absolutely.
remember when I was a kid and my parents' friends at my age now seemed old to me.
Yes.
They seemed old. And now I'm like, I mean, we hang out with Dan's videographer, Sam, and his girlfriend, Rosie, all the time. They're like 23, 25 years old.
Yeah.
I am technically old enough to be their mom.
Yeah.
And we're interested in the same things, like going to the gym and like hanging out. And I think it's like your youth is, you exude your youth if you're happy with your life.
Yeah. It's like a state of mind, you know?
It's
I
the
think
best
youth is a state of
facelift.
mind. Absolutely.
Okay, we could speak all day. And I want to say this that I'm working with you and your team. Michelle has an incredible team. I'm working with one of your, is it a naturopathic doctor? Heather. I don't know what
Yes.
her, okay. Super knowledgeable team. about everything from hormones to like libido, if that interests you, to losing weight or putting on muscle. And I'm excited to have you on stage at the Pink Skirt Project on June 12th. So I do have one last question before we hang up here, about being
Absolutely.
a wild woman. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that for you?
I think being a wild woman is being unapologetically you, having no filter, no holds barred, and not being afraid to be different, not being afraid to stand out, and not being afraid to make an impression.
Yeah. We get on stage in bikinis, baby.
Yeah, I might
Front of a
just do my talk in
bunch
a
of
bikini.
people. So if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
They can find me at glownaturalwellness.com. That's my website. But if they want to chit chat with me at Dr. Michelle Sands on Instagram, I answer all my Instagram messages. So they can chit chat with me there.
Or join us in Kelowna on June
Yes, join
12th
us
at
in
the Pink Skirt
They're
Project.
still
Make
seats
sure you have your pink
available.
skirt. It's going to be fun. We still have some tickets left. And Michelle's going to be speaking about some incredible stuff like libido as it means drive, and hanging out with us. So if you have any
Yeah.
detailed questions, bring them to the event. Otherwise, check her out on social and her website. But this has been great. And I really enjoy you coming hanging out with me today.
Oh my God, thank you. It's always so much fun to hang out with you, Renee.